The transport ship landed on Outpost 9 with a low roar. Dust flew into the air as its engines cooled. Inside the landing bay, soldiers in dark uniforms stood waiting. Another group of prisoners had arrived. Ben, a human security officer, stood near the loading ramp. He had seen dozens of prisoners before: criminals, rebels, or survivors from conquered planets. Most were broken. Most cried or screamed. He didn't expect this group to be any different. But as the prisoners were dragged out one by one, something made him freeze. There she was, a girl, young, tall, but thin like a shadow. Her skin was a soft silver blue, her hair long and tangled. Heavy metal cuffs were around her wrists and ankles. A thick collar sat around her neck with glowing red lights and obedience device. She didn't scream. She didn't speak. She didn't even look at the soldiers. She just walked, slow and silent. Ben's eyes locked on her face. She wasn't like the others. The others showed fear or hate. At this girl, her eyes held nothing. No hope, no anger. Just emptiness. He looked away, uncomfortable. But something deep inside whispered, "Look again." The girl was now kneeling with the others. The guard shouted commands, checked records, and laughed at the new captives. One guard kicked a prisoner for falling too slow. Another slapped a childlike alien who was crying too loud. Ben walked forward, pretending to check tags. When he reached the silver-blue girl, he paused. Her tag. Simply read, #X-92. No name. He crouched a little. "Can you understand me?" he asked softly. She didn't move. "I won't hurt you," he said. "I just want to help." Still, she didn't answer, but her eyes slowly turned toward him. Just for a moment. And in that moment, Ben felt something strange. There was pain in those eyes. Deep pain. But beneath it, something else. Something still alive. One of the guards laughed behind him. "Trying to talk to that thing, Ben? That one's not worth your breath. Quiet types like her don't last long anyway." Ben stood up slowly, still watching the girl. "What's her story?" he asked. The guard shrugged. "Came from Sector 12. Some royal blood or something. They found her hiding under dead bodies during a purge. Surprised she didn't just die there." Ben frowned. "She has no name?" "None she gave. Not that it matters. She's property now." Ben's hands curled into fists. He looked back down. The girl was still staring at him, but her expression hadn't changed. He wanted to say something, do something. But this wasn't the time. That night, in his quarters, Ben couldn't sleep. Her face haunted him. That silence, that emptiness. He pulled up her file on his datapad. Very little was listed. Species, unknown hybrid. Language, unclear. Skills, untrained. Status, transfer for labor. He sighed. The next day, he walked by the labor zone. The girl was there, hauling crates heavier than she could carry. Her knees shook, her back bent. A guard shouted at her. When she tripped, they hit her with a stun rod. Ben moved without thinking. "Stop it," he shouted. The guard froze. "Orders, Ben." She dropped a crate. "She's injured." "So what?" Ben stepped between the girl and the guard. "That's enough." There was silence. Tension. And the guard stepped back, muttering, "Your problem if command asks." Ben turned. The girl lay on the ground, breathing hard. A red bruise glowed on her side. He knelt and touched her arm gently. She flinched, but didn't pull away. He whispered, "I don't know your name, but I'm not like them." Still, no words from her, but her eyes. They softened. For the first time, she didn't look like an empty shell. Ben helped her up. He gave her water. She drank slowly, as if unsure it was real. He didn't know what would happen next. But he knew one thing for sure. This girl was more than they said. She was not broken. She was waiting for someone to see her. And Ben just had asterisk. Ben sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the floor. He couldn't get her out of his mind, the girl with no name, no voice, no past. Just a number on a metal tag. #X-92. To everyone else, she was a prisoner. A tool. A nobody. But to Ben, she was something else. Now, something important. Something wrong with the way the galaxy treated her. And it needed to change. That morning, he made a quiet decision. He would talk to her again. Out by the workfields, alien prisoners moved heavy crates under a cold sun. The guards barked orders. Machines roared in the distance. And in the middle of it all, she stood. X-92. Still silent. Still moving like a shadow. But Ben noticed her steps were slower today. Her injury hadn't healed. He walked up with a small pack. No one saw him slip it into her crate. Inside was a soft cloth, water, and a protein bar, small, but rare for a prisoner. Later, when she opened the crate and saw the items, her hands froze. She looked around, cautious. Then she hid them quickly. At night, Ben returned to the cargo area. A few prisoners still worked overtime. He saw her sitting alone in the shadows. This time, she looked up before he spoke. "I thought maybe you'd throw the food away," Ben said, keeping his voice low. She didn't reply, but her eyes stayed on his. Still guarded, but less cold. Ben pulled a small light from his belt and placed it between them. "See this?" he said. "It's old tech, but it does something special." He clicked it. A soft blue glow filled the corner of the room. Tiny light particles floated up into the air like stars. She blinked slowly. Almost like a dream, she reached out and touched one of the glowing particles. Ben smiled. "They're just reflections, but pretty, right?" After a long silence, she nodded. The smallest movement, but it was there. Ben sat down across from her, leaving space. "I don't know what happened to you," he said, "but I don't think you're just a number." She stared at the floating lights, then at him. After a moment, her lips parted. Not a word, just a breath. Like she wanted to speak, but forgot how. Ben didn't push. Maybe next time. He stood. To leave. But then, softly, so soft, it almost wasn't real. He heard her voice. "Lena." He turned, eyes wide. She was looking down now, her face unreadable. "What did you say?" He asked gently. Still no eye contact. "My name was Lena." Ben felt a strange emotion stir inside him. Not sadness. Not anger. Not respect. She had given him something no one else had in years. A piece of herself. The next day, things changed. When a guard tried to strike her again, Ben stood closer. When others mocked her, she kept her head higher. Lena. She had a name. Again, the other prisoners noticed too. Some looked at her differently now. Not with pity, but with wonder. One human caring about one alien girl? It didn't seem like much, but it was more than this place had seen in a long time. That night, Ben reported to his superior. "You're spending a lot of time with that slave," the officer said, frowning. "She has a name." Ben replied quietly. The officer laughed. "Don't get emotional. She's not even our species. You're here to guard, not to babysit." Ben nodded, but his hands were clenched behind his back. Later, as he passed the hallway back to the cells, he paused. He saw Lena curled up in her corner, but this time, she wasn't shaking. She was watching the stars outside the tiny window. And for the first time, her expression wasn't empty. It was hope. Asterisk. Lena sat near the corner of the labor zone, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her body was still, but her mind was not. The memory of the stars, the floating blue lights Ben had shown her, and most of all her name, echoed in her mind like a secret song. She had spoken it aloud. Lina. For the first time in years, someone knew her as more than just a number. But even that small spark came with danger. The next morning, her work began again. Crates, lifting, carrying, pain in her back, pain in her legs. Her wrists were still raw from the cuffs. And the worst pain of all memories. When she was a child, her world had color. Her people had songs. Her mother used to braid her hair with tiny glowing stones. Her father wore long blue robes and laughed in deep, proud tones. And then the sky burned. She saw the warships cold, massive, silent. The humans didn't arrive. Then the Empire did. The slavers. Her people were too gentle, too peaceful. They didn't fight back. They just disappeared. She had been found buried beneath bodies. The smell, the silence, the heavy, endless night. Even now, she could feel that night pressing on her chest. But now, there was one light. One human. Ben, meanwhile, stood in the command hallway, facing a panel of officers. The air was tense. You assaulted a guard, one officer said sharply. He hit her, Ben replied, his tone calm but cold, unprovoked. She's not your concern, another officer said. She's a prisoner, property. Ben kept, his jaw tight. She has a name. The room went quiet. Repeat that? Lina, that's her name. The officers looked at each other, then laughed quietly. You're getting too involved, the leader said. You're removed from cell duty, effective immediately. Ben's fists clenched at his sides. You're making a mistake? No. You did, the officer said, tapping a report screen. One more incident and you'll be reassigned, or worse. Ben didn't answer. He just walked out, but in his heart, he had already decided he would protect her, no matter the cost. Later, that night, Ben found a way to sneak into the maintenance bay, where the prisoners were stored between shifts. Quiet, empty. Risky. He found Lina sitting alone. This time, when he sat beside her, she didn't flinch. I'm off cell duty now, he whispered. I won't be able to see you much. Lina's head turned, just slightly. Why? Because I stood up for you. Her hands tightened around her knees. I don't want you hurt, he said. Not again. Lina finally spoke. You can't stop paying. Ben looked at her. Maybe not, but maybe I can take some of it, share it. She stared at him, confused. Why would you do that? Because you're not nothing, he said. They tried to break you, but they failed. For a long time, there was silence. Then, slowly, Lina turned her arm toward him, revealing a scar along her forearm. Deep, old, ugly. They took everything, she said softly. My family, my world, even my name. Ben reached out, gently touching the edge of the scar. But not your soul. She looked away, blinking fast. Ben leaned closer. We'll find a way out of here, I promise. Escape? She whispered. He nodded. But we'll need time. And trust. She looked back at him now fully, clearly. For the first time, her eyes weren't empty. They were alive. Okay, she said quietly. I trust you. In a hidden storage locker near the edge of the camp, Ben had already begun gathering supplies, medical kits, maps, and an old radio beacon he repaired himself. But what he didn't know was that someone had been watching him. Guard in the shadows, silent, recording everything. Back in the cell block, Lina curled up in her usual corner. But she didn't feel cold tonight. For the first time in forever, she had hope. But in the darkness outside her room, a report was being sent, and danger was already on its way. The wind howled outside the outpost walls. Sand carried by the storm slapped against steel. The night was thick with silence, except for the sound of Ben's boots moving carefully across the metal floor. In his hands, He held a stolen KEYCARD. This was the night. He reached the old storage room behind the transport bay. Inside, one backpack, one first aid kit, one worn map, and a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was the only chance they had. Lena sat quietly in the sleeping area, pretending to rest. Her mind was loud. Her heart beat faster than usual. Ben had told her everything. They would escape at night. He had found a crack in the schedule between shift rotations, just before the security drones powered, down for system checks. But one problem remained. The tracker. Every prisoner had one. Tiny, sharp, buried deep near the neck. If it was removed the wrong way, it would explode. Ben had read the specs. There was one way to disable it manually, but it was painful, dangerous, and it had to be done fast. Lina hadn't hesitated. I'd rather die trying to be free, she had said, than live like this. Now it was time. Ben returned to her. Cell past midnight. He used the stolen card to disable the door. No alarm so far. Lina stepped out, wrapped in a dark cloth he had given her. Her silver-blue skin now hidden. Her eyes calm but alert. They slipped into the maintenance chamber. Ben opened his kit. Inside was a small device sharp, like a needle, glowing at the tip. The tool that could stop the tracker. Are you sure? He asked her. Lena nodded. Do. It. Ben pressed the tool against her neck, right above the tracking implant. The moment it touched her skin, she winced. I'm sorry, he whispered. The tool made a faint clicking sound. Her body stiffened. The red light on her collar began to flash. Faster. Louder. Then. Beep, beep. Silence. The light went out. The tracker was dead. But Lina had collapsed. Ben caught her before she hit the ground. Her breathing was shallow, but steady. He gave her water, waited a moment, and helped her stand. We're almost there, he said. They moved like ghosts down the hallway. No alarms, no footsteps. Just quiet hums and machines sleeping. Near the exit gate. Ben pulled out the backup pass. It worked. The outer door opened, and the cold desert air hit them like ice. They stepped out onto the landing platform, walking quickly, toward the cargo hold. An old ship waited nearby, abandoned, but still functional. Ben had checked it days ago. Just a few more meters. Stop. The voice came from above. A light snapped on. 3 guards stood on a platform, weapons raised. One of them was the officer Ben had argued with before. His face was smug. Going somewhere, officer? He asked. Ben stepped in front of Lena. Let her go. I'll stay. The officer laughed. You think this is a story? Some noble rescue? She's nothing. Lena stepped forward. No, she said clearly. I am not nothing. The officer froze. It was the first time he had heard her speak. Ben looked at her, stunned. I chose this, Lena continued, louder now. He didn't force me. He didn't trick me. He gave me back my name. She stepped beside Ben, tall and unafraid. You want to shoot me? She said, then shoot. The guards hesitated. No one moved. For a long moment, the wind howled again, and that was all. Then a silent alarm sounded from the station behind them. Something unexpected. Another ship was approaching from orbit, an unscheduled arrival. Guards turned, distracted. Ben grabbed Lena's hand. Now. They ran. Shots fired behind them. Dust flew. Ben tackled Lena into the side of the old ship. He hit the open button. The hatch opened. They scrambled inside. Ben closed the hatch, powered. The system. The ship groaned, but the engine responded. The station's alarms. Screamed. The guards pounded on the door. Too late. The old vessel lifted into the sky. Slow but steady. They were flying. Lena sat on the floor, breathing hard, staring out the window. As the outpost became smaller and smaller, Ben sat beside her, his face bruised but smiling. "You did it," he said. Lena looked at him. Double quotes, "No, we did it." The wind howled outside the outpost walls. Sand carried by the storm slapped against steel. The night was thick with silence, except for the sound of Ben's boots moving carefully across the metal floor. In his hands, he held a stolen HFY. This was the night. He reached the old storage room behind the transport bay. Inside, one backpack, one first aid kit, one worn map, and a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was the only chance they had. Lena sat quietly in the sleeping area, pretending to rest. Her mind was loud. Her heart beat faster than usual. Ben had told her everything. They would escape at night. He had found a crack in the schedule between shift rotations, just before the security drones powered down for system checks. But one problem remained. The tracker. Every prisoner had one. Tiny, sharp, buried deep near the neck. If it was removed the wrong way, it would explode. Ben had read the specs. There was one way to disable it manually, but it was painful, dangerous, and it had to be done fast. Lena hadn't hesitated. "I'd rather die trying to be free," she had said, "than live like this." Now it was time. Ben returned to her. Cell past midnight. He used the stolen card to disable the door. No alarm so far. Lena stepped out, wrapped in a dark cloth he had given her, her silver blue skin now hidden. Her eyes calm but alert. They slipped into the maintenance chamber. Ben opened his kit. Inside was a small device sharp like a needle, glowing at the tip. The tool that could stop the tracker. "Are you sure?" he asked her. Lena nodded. "Do it." Ben pressed the tool against her neck, right above the tracking implant. The moment it touched her skin, she winced. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The tool made a faint clicking sound. Her body stiffened. The red light on her collar began to flash. Faster. Louder. Then. Beep, beep. Silence. The light went out. The tracker was dead, but Lena had collapsed. Ben caught her before she hit the ground. Her breathing was shallow, but steady. He gave her water, waited a moment, and helped her stand. Asterisk? "We're almost there," he said. They moved like ghosts down the hallway. No alarms, no footsteps. Just quiet hums of machines sleeping. Near the exit gate. Ben pulled out the backup pass. It worked. The outer door opened, and the cold desert. Air hit them like ice. They stepped out onto the landing platform, walking quickly toward the cargo hold. An old ship waited nearby, abandoned, but still functional. Ben had checked it days ago. Just a few more meters. "Stop." The voice came from above. A light snapped on. 3 guards stood on a platform, weapons raised. One of them was the officer Ben had argued with before. His face was smug. "Going somewhere, officer?" he asked. Ben stepped in front of Lena. "Let her go." "I'll stay." The officer laughed. "You think this is a story? Some noble rescue? She's nothing." Lena stepped forward. "No," she said clearly. "I am not nothing." The officer froze. It was the first time he had heard her speak. Ben looked at her, stunned. "I chose this," Lena continued, louder now. "He didn't force me. He didn't trick me. He gave me back my name." She stepped beside Ben, tall and unafraid. "You want to shoot me?" she said. "Then shoot." The guards hesitated. No one moved. For a long moment, the wind howled again, and that was all. Then a silent alarm sounded from the station behind them. Something unexpected. Another ship was approaching from orbit, an unscheduled arrival. Guards turned, distracted. Ben grabbed Lena's hand. "Now." They ran. Shots fired behind them. Dust flew. Ben tackled Lena into the side of the old ship. He hit the open button. The hatch opened. They scrambled inside. Ben closed the hatch, powered the system. The ship groaned, but the engine responded. The station's alarms screamed. The guards pounded on the door. Not too late. The old vessel lifted into the sky. Slow but steady, they were flying. Lena sat on the floor, breathing hard, staring out the window. As the outpost became smaller and smaller, Ben sat beside her, his face bruised, but smiling. "You did it," he said. Lena looked at him. Double quotes, "No, we did it." Asterisk, the stars outside the cockpit shone cold and distant. Inside the stolen ship, the lights flickered as old systems struggled to keep up. The engines hummed, barely stable. But they were moving. Free. Ben sat in the pilot seat, guiding the ship through a quiet trade lane. Beside him, Lena stared out the side window, her face unreadable. She hadn't spoken much since they escaped. Maybe it was the pain from the tracker removal. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe, just maybe, freedom was something too big to believe all at once. Suddenly, the console beeped. Ben leaned forward. "That's not good." Lena turned. "What is it?" He tapped the screen. "A patrol ship. Fast one. No ID. It's tracking us." Lena's voice was quiet. They followed. Ben tightened his grip on the controls. "They shouldn't have. This ship is off record. No beacons, no trails." Lena nodded slowly, unless someone told them where to look. Ben turned toward her. "You think we were betrayed?" She didn't answer, but her silence said enough. The patrol ship grew closer. Ben rerouted power to engines, pushing the old ship faster. The frame groaned. Lights dimmed. "They're hailing us," he muttered. "Don't answer," Lena said. Quickly. "Why not? I recognize that signal." "It's not the outpost." Her voice turned cold. "It's Empire fleet, the ones who destroyed my world." Ben's eyes narrowed. "How would they know you're alive?" Lena took a deep breath. "Because someone told them. Someone who was supposed to protect us." The story came slowly, between the sound of warnings and flashing lights. Her planet hadn't fallen by chance. It was a trade. The ruling empire wanted power over a key system, and her people's planet stood in the way. So a deal was made. A member of her own royal court, someone close to her family, betrayed them. He leaked defense codes, gave up safe zones, and made sure she, the last heir, was captured alive. "Why would he keep you alive?" Ben asked, shocked. Lena looked down. "Insurance. If they ever needed control again, they'd use me as a puppet queen." Ben shook his head. "Not anymore." Alarms rang louder. The patrol ship had locked weapons. Ben acted fast, turning the ship sharply toward a nearby asteroid belt. "We're going in," he said. Lena gripped the wall. "That's suicide. Only if we don't fly smart." The old freighter dove into the belt. Massive rocks spun in every direction. Some were bigger than cities. The smaller ones crashed into each other, sending shards across space. The patrol ship followed. "Hang on," Ben shouted. They weaved between spinning rocks, scraped the hull against a jagged surface, and dodged a collapsing tunnel of debris. Patrol ship fired, but missed. Ben dived behind a broken moon chunk and killed the engines. Silence. "They'll think we crashed," he whispered. For 2 long minutes, neither spoke. Outside, the stars blinked again. The radar cleared. Ben sighed. "We're safe. For now." Later, as they floated silently in the asteroid field, Ben brought Lena a warm drink. She accepted it, hands shaking just slightly. "I never thought I'd leave that place alive," she said. Ben sat down across from her. "You didn't just escape. You fought your way out." She looked at him. "You don't understand. In my world, we were trained to never show emotion, to obey." To stay quiet. You weren't quiet, Ben said. You told me your name. You trusted me. You ran. That's louder than any shout. Lena's eyes softened. Thank you, Ben. He smiled. We're not done yet. Back at the edge of the asteroid belt, a silent transmission was sent from a cloaked ship. The message was short. Target confirmed alive. Last heir identified. Send the executor. Asterisk, the stars were calm outside, but inside the old freighter, war was coming. Ben checked the systems again. Fuel low. Shields weak. Weapons? Almost none. We can't outrun another fleet, he said quietly. Lena sat beside him, silent for a moment. Then she looked up. And we stopped running. Ben blinked. What do you mean? They're not chasing me because I'm dangerous, she said. They're chasing me because they know what I could become if I wasn't afraid. He watched her, surprised by the strength in her voice. I've been broken, Ben, she continued. Beaten, branded, but I'm still here. And maybe it's time I showed them who I really am. Ben nodded slowly. And we show them. The plan was simple but bold. They would fly directly to the neutral communication relay near the Sol frontier, a massive station used by hundreds of species to send untraceable messages across sectors. It was guarded by law no warships allowed. Near it, if Lena could broadcast her truth from there to every open channel in the galaxy, she could tell her story before the Empire erased her again. But there was a risk. If the Empire got there first, they would kill her and anyone who helped her. Hours later, the ship left the asteroid field and made a hyperspace jump toward the relay. Inside the cabin, Ben handed Lena a mirror. She looked at her reflection. The face once covered in dirt and bruises was healing. Her silver-blue skin still marked, but no longer lifeless. She ran her fingers through her tangled hair and whispered, They told me I had no right to a name. Ben watched her. She turned to him. I don't want to be called Lina anymore. He tilted his head. What do you want? She took a deep breath. Call me Kale. It was the name of my great-grandmother, the last free queen of my people. Ben smiled. Kale it is. They reached the relay station. The massive rings of metal spun slowly in space, like a silent guardian. Ben sent a docking. Request approved. But just as the ship began to dock, another signal appeared. Empire ship, bigger, faster, deadly. Ben shouted, Bear here. Kale stood. Then let's finish this. The station guards, locked the Empire ship from docking weapons, were not allowed. But their presence created panic. Kale, and Ben rushed into the relay's command room. Technicians stared as she stepped. Forward, regal and calm, like a storm that had learned to walk. She connected to the Galactic broadcast. A blue light turned on. Every major channel, every translator, every open receiver lit up. She spoke. My name is Kale. Once I was a slave. Before that, I was royalty. And before that, I was a child who watched her world burn. The room froze. I was broken. I was silenced. They tried to erase my name, but they failed. Because one human reminded me that I am more than what they see. Tears welled in some of the staff's eyes. To the Empire, she continued, her voice sharp now. I am not your puppet. I am your proof of guilt. I carry the names of the dead, and I will speak for them. Behind her, Ben stood proudly. To every race that has lost someone to power and fear, you are not alone. We are not broken. We are waiting. And we are rising. The broadcast ended. Outside, the Empire ship turned and vanished. They couldn't attack. Not now. The message had already spread. Days later, Kale and Ben sat on the edge of the relay deck, watching ships pass. She wore new clothes now, simple, but clean. Her eyes were brighter. You could have left me, she said. I couldn't, he answered. Why? Ben smiled. Because I saw you. She leaned against him gently. I thought I had nothing left, she whispered. But now I have a name, a voice, and a future. He nodded. And what do you want to do with it? Kale looked out into the stars. Help others like me find their names again.